You are getting gaslit at work, whether you realize it or not. This is Professor Corporate, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about exactly what you can do to deal with that gaslighting when it happens to you at work. That's not what we talked about. Is there any reason this wasn't done on time? If you aren't able to complete this on your own, please let me know. Every single one of those lines are things that toxic managers may say to you that you might think is normal, and sure, sometimes they can be, but more often than not, these are things that they might say to manipulate you. So let's actually talk about what gaslighting is, because in the corporate world, it may not come off as obvious as it does outside of work, but it is 100% a form of manipulation. To me, it's basically the process in which toxic people leverage to make you doubt your perception of what is real. And we're not just talking about disagreement. No. We're talking about the constant denial and distortion of truth. So let's talk about some of the examples I started the video with. One of the most common ones is, "That's not what we talked about." And the reason this one is so powerful and effective for manipulators is because it forces a conversation around interpretation. Because it's really easy for people who are bad at communication to hide behind this excuse that it wasn't them that didn't articulate themselves clearly. No. It's your fault for not understanding what they meant. The other reason gaslighters love using the phrase, "that's not what we talked about," is because now it's a conversation of their word versus yours. And it's also now a discussion and debate around whose memory was more accurate, because none of this is in writing. So what do you do when somebody tries to gaslight you by saying this? The first thing you need to do is to not get defensive, because being defensive can give off the perception of admitting fault or being guilty. Instead, you're going to put this shit back on them by asking them targeted questions. Things like, could you be more specific about what part of our conversation you're referring to? And now you've successfully shifted the burden of memory to them to explain what they're talking about. And this is really effective against gaslighters because, like we talked about, they're usually going to have bad communication, and they weren't going to be explicit when they asked you originally for whatever it is you guys are talking about. So you can catch them in their lie. And if you do this right, they'll usually end up apologizing for not being clear enough. And the last technique that you could use is something I like to call never again, where you end up taking the L now, but you're going to win in the long run. And the way this works is you're going to let them think that they are right. You're going to let them win this argument because it is not the battle that you want to pick. You're going to say something like, "Sorry, I must have misunderstood. I'll go ahead and take care of that. But moving forward, let's plan to shift these to email. This way, I won't make the same mistake in the future." And you might be wondering, why would I do that if they are wrong? It's because you are playing the long game and playing them at the same time. People who gaslight are just going to be excited that they got away with something and you admitted guilt. But by positioning yourself as somebody that is taking blame and accountability, it's going to be extremely hard for them to say no to your request of making sure that you don't make mistakes in the future. But now they are on the hook for putting these things in writing where you can catch them in the future and they won't be able to do this to you again. One of the most powerful things in corporate America is to have your receipts. But gaslighters, especially toxic ones, are people that will intentionally try to make sure that nothing is in writing so that there isn't a paper trail for you to catch them. And this last method is one of the most effective ways for you to create that paper trail and to get that receipt, because it's extremely hard for them to say no to a request like that because of how reasonable and accountable you are. These are the kinds of things that nobody teaches you in corporate America, and it is why I created this platform called the Corporate Clapback Academy, so I can teach you the necessary skills that you need to survive. So if this kind of information is helpful, consider subscribing, because this is all the kind of content that I'm going to make here. And by the way, I know I skipped two of the examples I opened this video with. This one, is there any reason this wasn't done on time? And this one, if you aren't able to complete this on your own, please let me know. So if you want to see me break those down, stick around for part 2.